In this episode we explore Peenemünde Kraftwerk, the power station that served the German Army Research Center with electricity. It was here the first V2 rockets were launched. Unlike all other plants in Peenemünde, it was not blown up after the war. Join us as we discover what remains. The coal-fired power plant in Peenemünde was built between 1939 and 1942. The power plant served as an important infrastructure, primarily to cover the high energy requirements for the production of liquid oxygen as a fuel component. Werner von Braun was the technical director at Peenemünde. Among other things, he led the development of Aggregat 4, or A4, a large rocket powered by liquid fuel. It was later built as series under the name V2. On May 2nd, 1945, von Braun and several members of the engineering team surrendered. The American High Command was well aware about how important this team was. Von Braun had been in the top of the blacklist, the code name for the list of German scientists and engineers targeted for immediately interrogation by the US military experts. 100 A4 rockets were transported to the United States, where they formed the basis of the American rocket program. This program was named Operation Paperclip, whose primary purpose was to give the US military advantage in the Soviet-American Cold War and the space race. And here we have a clip of the Saturn V rocket in Florida, in Cape Canaveral. Now, let's start this tour on the outside, and I will guide you around with some historical context and facts as we go along. This building functioned both as a control room and an air raid shelter. The thickness of the walls and ceiling is 2 meters. And as you see here, this is the outdoor switching yard, and it was built post-war for providing electricity to the regional energy grid. It looks older because it was heavily affected by coal dust and the rain over the years. The factory railway was essential for transporting people to the test facilities. Up to 12,000 people were transported daily. And this is the A4 rocket, 119 kilometers of range within 5 minutes. The Woman in the Moon painting is a homage to the German science fiction film from 1929. 22,000 V1 flying bombs was launched. A steam-powered catapult system accelerated the rocket to a launch speed of over 300 kilometers an hour. 2,400 of these flying bombs hits London. Around 7 kilometers of service shafts and culverts were linked in a modern system of underground cables and pipes, supplying all test site and the Karlshagen labor camp with heating and electricity. And this is the coal transport conveyor belt transporting the coal to the main building. The coal-fired power plant in Peenemünde was built between 1939 and 1942, because unlike all other plants in Peenemünde, it was not blown up after the war. It could continue to be used in the East Germany and generated electricity until 1990. The power plant had an output of 30 megawatts, which was generated in 2 turbo generators. 22 of those megawatts was consumed alone by the oxygen liquid factory. Please see a link above for more info about that site. Now, let's take a deeper look inside the main building. You can clearly see the ambition for symmetry and functionality was very high. During Operation Hydra, the research facility was badly hit by the attack by the RAF Bomber Command on Peenemünde on the night in August 1943. 123 people died, including the scientist Walter Feel. Werner von Braun was able to save himself in a bunker. The moon crater Feel is named after Walter Feel. It's located on the far side of the moon. Here you can see the remains of the receiving yard where the freight trains arrived. And you can clearly see where the wooden railroad ties were. A heavy air attack by the Royal Air Force on the night of 18th of August 1943 brought the manufacture in Peenemünde into abrupt halt. The bombing of Peenemünde gave the authorities no other choice but to move the production to regions less exposed to the air. A decision was made in favor of the tunnel system in Mittelbau-Dora. More people actually died building the V2 rockets than were killed by it as a weapon. After the occupation of Peenemünde by the Red Army, the power plant continued to be operated. Into the early 1950s it was repaired and expanded. And this building contains the pumps that provide fresh water to the boilers. We will take a look inside in a minute. Siemens Schuckert AG was commissioned with the construction and the technical equipment. To protect against flooding, the subsoil was covered with almost 3 meters of sand, and more than 2,000 reinforced concrete plies were driven to the ground to secure the building. For camouflage purpose, the power plant had a flue gas cleaning system, and in addition it was painted with camouflage paint during the Second World War. You can actually see traces of these camouflage patterns on this facade. The water to the boilers were taken from the harbor basin and was cleaned and distributed from this building. This is the crusher house for crushing the coal. The coal was transported from the crusher house to the coal bunkers by conveyor belts in an inclined elevator. The facility is now used by the Peenemünde Historical and Technical Museum. Thanks to them for letting us in, and thanks to you for watching this episode.